I am, I don't have a formal introduction for Scott, but I will tell you, Scott Reynolds is the chairperson for our district Rotary Youth Exchange Committee. He took over from Karen Steffens, and I had the opportunity to meet Scott in beautiful Westerville, Ohio, where the Ohio Erie Exchange was taking place earlier this year. And I will be forever grateful to Scott and his beautiful wife, Lori, because when we got to the facility and they handed out things that we would need for our dormitory rooms, we didn't realize that there were no pillows. So Scott and Lori went out and found a pillow for me and brought several back to the dormitory, and my body thanks you for that. So Scott is a great guy. He's actually a transplant for District 7710 and is now located is a member of the Shelby Breakfast Rotary Club, and we are so grateful for the leadership.
Yeah. I was going to say thank you, Kevin, and I apologize for not getting you a bio.
No worries.
And
I do have one more thing I have to say about him though, because this is very interesting, and I know there's a story behind it. He is a man of my dreams, and I say that because I say that because in a very jealous way, because Scott was born on February 29th. And I was born on March 1st, 1956. Missed it by that much.
Wow. So a lot of benefits to being born on the 29th.
Yes.
Yes. So my birthday every 4 years when I was growing up, when I actually had a birthday, it was always a great birthday.
Always.
Always. When I turned 3, which would have been 12 years, I got a bicycle. And when I turned 4, I got a car. And so it was always great. It was always great.
Scott, welcome.
Thank you. Well, I always feel welcome at Rotary Club meetings. I especially feel good here when Daryl's talking about the American Legion World Series. It feels like we're family. My club hosts one of the teams. We hosted Troy post 70, and you'll remember they won last year.
Yes.
So we had high expectations for them this year, and they were a really good team, but they lost 2 games on the very last play of both games. Yeah, they had walk-off doubles hit on them in the very in both their games.
Wow.
But they're great kids, and they stayed at the Fairfield Inn. And just so you'll know, we meet there, my club, and they came. The leadership there at the hotel came to us and said, "You just don't understand how awesome those young men have been while they were here."
Wow.
And so they moved, they got there, I think, on Monday afternoon. And of course, you know there's disappointment when you lose, especially when you're a defending champion. But they really represented the American Legion well at the hotel there. So,
Outstanding.
So talk about youth exchange. I've been doing youth exchange on and off about 12 years. I do programs on youth exchange and the Rotary Peace Center at Duke UNC. So if you need another program one day, I'll be glad to arrange, especially since you have Zoom, for you to have a Peace Fellow to speak to your club. And if you've never been to the Peace Conference, every year in April, the Peace Conference, you'll have the graduating fellows will give you a 20-minute spiel on what they did and what they're going to do. It's the best day in Rotary. And I can tell you, I've done a lot of Rotary stuff in my lifetime. That is the best day in Rotary. April 1st, go ahead and get your phones out. This is the only time you're allowed to get your phones out in a Rotary meeting. But April 1st, put it on your calendar. It's at Chapel Hill, and it's a great day.
And the seats do book early, now that they're open again.
That's right. April 1st, and you do have to book early. The room only holds about 300, and it will be booked solid. But it's a great day if you have the opportunity to go. I'll tell you 2 quick stories about the power of Rotary before I talk about youth exchange in particular. So Rotary has the largest youth exchange organization in the world. Most people don't know that, even Rotarians.
Jenny, are you recording?
Yes.
And
I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. And so at any given time, we've got about 8,000 students that are on youth exchange. Well, with that 8,000, there's lots of travel. So you've got kids that are going to a foreign country all over the world. So when we came back from Westerville on that Sunday, weather wasn't bad here, it was bad in New York. We had one of our outbound students that was coming into New York and then coming here. New York weather's bad, flight got canceled. Okay. Now think about a 15, 16, 17-year-old. They're not like my wife who travels a lot and has this, super gold executive thing with an airline. So they're at the bottom of the list when it comes to rebooking. All right. So flight gets canceled on Sunday. They tell her, we can't get you out till Tuesday. So here we have a teenager on her way home, can't get home till Tuesday. So I'm halfway home to Shelby. I get a call. Okay, let's see what we can do. I pull over. I call a friend of mine in Delaware, a Rotary friend of mine that does youth exchange. Said, hey, you know anybody near JFK? And he said, yeah. I said, we got a kid that's going to be stranded here for a couple of days. And at the same time, Karen was using NAN Talk. NAN is the North American Youth Exchange Network. And we have this little email blast gizmo that you can send a note out and say, I've got a kid stranded, or anything about Rotary Youth Exchange. Well, Karen's sending out a blast that we got a kid that's going to be stranded in New York. I'm talking to my buddy in Delaware. In less than an hour between the email blast and my buddy in Delaware, we have a Rotarian in Queens that has said, we got her. Just give us her contact information. They went and got her, took her to a certified Rotary host family, and they took care of her in Queens for 2 days, dropped her back off there to come home.
I love the idea of taking her to a family that's already been cleared. That's a
Yeah,
great-
so y'all remember that, because that's going to be one of my asks at the end. Okay? I come with asks. All right, so now we had an inbound that just arrived. Y'all use FlightAware? Everybody know what FlightAware is, where you can track a plane? Yep. Track a jet, all right. So I'm sitting at the airport here in Charlotte, tracking her flight. And it's that Monday, 2 weeks ago, that about 5 o'clock, we had a terrible storm. She flies around the airport about 3 times, comes into land, gets down to 1,000 feet. And then instead of it saying that it's going to Charlotte on FlightAware, it says it's going to Newark. Got down to 1,000 feet, went to Newark. So I'm thinking, okay, all right. So I called Karen. I said, hey, let's use that NAN thing. And she's at home. She sends a note out, 5 minutes. There's a Rotarian that's in the Youth Exchange organization in Newark, says, I got her. If she has to stay in Newark, I'll take care of her. Luckily, she didn't have to stay in Newark. She got back here about midnight that night. So that's just the power of Rotary and the power of Youth Exchange. If you didn't know, Rotary also has a pre-conference at the International Convention where most of the Youth Exchange people around the world come for 2 to 3 days before the RI convention, and we have our own separate convention to work on Youth Exchange stuff. So, all right, so let's talk about Youth Exchange. I may not stand back here now.
We'll actually get you better from back there anyway.
Yeah. All right, so I'll just stand back here.
Or is it
Yeah.
Is.
Try something else here. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Wi-Fi is acting over here.
All the, getting this one, hope that's just the one.
Yes, it's Wi-Fi. It's Wi-Fi. Yeah. It's the Wi-Fi. Interesting, it's changing on mine, but it's.
Here we go.
Delay.
There we go.
It's a delay. It's serious.
This is like.
Okay, all right.
It does its own thing.
Youth Exchange is 7680. So I'll just make an assumption that y'all know nothing about Youth Exchange and get it to you from the basic level. So Youth Exchange is one of Rotary's structured programs designed to help clubs and districts meet your service goals, but also promote peace, one kid at a time. And that's really what we talk about, is promoting peace one kid at a time. There we go. It provides young people an opportunity to experience cultures other than their own, gives participants broader views of the world. And what I tell folks is when it comes to leadership skills and communication skills, it is amazing to see the difference in a young person when they've been gone for 9 months on a youth exchange. When they leave, when they come back. It's just totally amazing. Youth exchange, probably the biggest thing it does is gives them the ability to develop problem-solving skills that they didn't know they needed and didn't know they had the ability to do, but they become great problem solvers. And by October of every year, they'll leave in August, by October, they're typically fully fluent in their new language, which is amazing to me, but a young person's mind adapts to a new language much quicker than someone our age. And I ask them all the time, I say, hey, email me when you start dreaming in your new language. Always happens in October.
So you really can't teach an old dog new tricks.
You can't. You can teach a young pup new tricks. When you think about youth exchange, it's really what we do is a cultural exchange. It's associated with going to school, but truly what we're doing is giving these kids the opportunity to do something in an entirely different culture for a complete year. And they gain a better understanding of basic needs that we all have from either a personal, diverse, or a group perspective. And they have amazing opportunities through youth exchange. Has anybody ever hosted a youth exchange student? Excellent, excellent. Have you ever recruited one?
Well, we kind of recruited our one from last year.
Yeah.
She had done
Oh,
the,
yeah.
So,
she had done the SFTL and
Yeah.
okay.
came to us and asked us to.
So the challenge, or not necessarily the challenge, but youth exchange is not really a big deal with American students. It's a much bigger deal in Europe and especially in South America, Brazil in particular. So it's very difficult for us to recruit outbounds, but it's much easier for us to host inbounds because there's a lot of inbounds that are looking for opportunities. It started in 27 and then became an official program in 72. More than 8,000 students, I mentioned earlier, go to over 60 countries. We're still trying to recover from the pandemic. The only states in the US that are back to pre-pandemic levels are on the West Coast. Our travel agency doesn't really know why. It's just on the West Coast, but it's California, Oregon, and Washington. They're back in actually higher numbers than pre-pandemic, but in all other areas, we're still lower than pre-pandemic. The big thing about our program is it's very affordable. Anybody ever have any experience with the for-profit youth exchange?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't remember the name, but it's the one Mamico Reeves was associated with that work with. Do you remember when they tried to get them all?
Yeah. There's several of them out there, a dozen of them or more, and nothing against them, but the way they do their programs is different from Rotary. Rotary, we do it all with volunteers, like we do everything. And we tell our students that they can plan to have to spend somewhere around $7,000 to $8,000. And one organization that I'm familiar with costs about $20,000 to do a youth exchange. So you'll see most of our posters and flyers, we talk about it being a scholarship, and it really truly is a scholarship because we're funding a lot of the cost of these programs through the volunteers in our Rotary network. It's also one of the few programs that's open to your children or grandchildren from Rotary. Typically, we don't allow our family members to participate in Rotary programs, but we do for youth exchange. eligible students between the age of 15 and 19, be in high school or the equivalent, above average academically and socially ready to do a youth exchange. And like I said, I've done this on and off for about 12 years. I had one young man, and we just didn't feel like he was ready. And we told him that, and we told him what he needed to do, and he came back and went to follow him. So the biggest challenge for this is being socially ready for some of these students to be able to go out and travel on their own at the age of 15 or 16. Now, again, there we go. So a long-term exchange, a student will stay with 2 to 3 host families, and they will attend school at the local level. The only real requirement there is they have to attend the same school for the entire year. And that's more of an internal Rotary and local school system requirement. Most youth exchange organizations don't have that requirement because they only have 1 host family. The reason we do 2 or 3, we want the students to see the cultural differences between 2 to 3 families that potentially could live in the same neighborhood. Okay? We also do short-term exchange, which are very popular. These are family-to-family exchanges where we had a young man that went to Italy this year. Family-to-family exchanges where we match up families in 2 different countries, and they work together to develop the exchange time frame and framework on that best fits their situation. So the gentleman that left from here, they had a 3-week exchange. He had a young Giovanni came over and stayed for 3 weeks with him, and then he went over for 3 weeks to stay with Giovanni. And I talked to him, well, I didn't talk to him, I WhatsApped with him several times while he was gone, and then he wrote a little thing that hopefully will make it into the district newsletter in the coming months about his experience.
Is that for Rotary members family?
Yeah, Rotary member families can also do the short-term exchange. And we typically have probably 50% for short-term exchange will be Rotarians families and 50% will be others. Long-term exchanges, it feels like it's mostly non-Rotarians. So how does an exchange operate? So club committees would recruit a student to be an outbound, or you would recruit host families to host your inbound. Okay, and then the district chairs, and our district, we have a very small committee. We need to grow it. That's coming later. But we have the only requirement for the district is the chair has to be a Rotarian. All of our other district committees don't have to be Rotarians. And actually, probably our 2 most active committee members are not Rotarians, but they're former Rotary exchange students, which is even better because they have the direct experience of being on exchanges. So we work with our counterparts around the world to organize these exchanges, and that's what we talk about in the Ohio Erie multi-district. Just like we have the multi-district here that puts on pets, Ohio Erie manages youth exchange. It'd be almost impossible today to be able to manage youth exchange at a district level and be able to make the contacts that you have around the world. The great thing about the multi-district is we have country contacts, and we'll have a country contact that will be responsible for 2 or 3 countries, and they're on a first name, handshake, know them personally basis with their contacts in the other countries. So if there's any kind of issues, it's very easy for them to pick up the phone and figure out what the details are and solve those. And we have a district, we have a list of district chairs quarterly to help with communication with one another also. Okay. Club committee structure. You have the outbound coordinator, inbound coordinator. Those are pretty self-explanatory from the standpoint that they're working with the outbound students and the inbound students. We also have an outbound and inbound coordinator at the district level. Those are the 2 former exchange students I mentioned. Then you have the host family coordinator that works and helps recruit and vet the host families. A very important part of our program is the vetting that goes on. The background checks, the references, and everything associated with vetting for anybody that has contact with these kids. And I tell folks, I don't know how the vetting process in other countries are, but I do know that they have a vetting process that will be similar to ours, but it may look different or feel different, but they're still vetting all their volunteers to make sure that they're not going to be any issues associated with those folks interacting with these young kids. The club counselor is the one that meets with the inbound and keeps in touch with the outbound to make sure everything's going well and make sure if there's any issues that we help resolve them quickly. And you notice I said help resolve them. We don't try to solve all the issues for these young people. What we try to do is give them the tools to solve those issues themselves. Now, if they can't solve them themselves, we certainly will help them, but we don't want to be, a situation where we're trying to solve all their problems. We want to just help them understand how to use particular tools to solve a problem. Public relations coordinator, and I'm sure you already have a youth protection officer.
He's actually a member of our impact group.
Excellent, excellent. Here is the district folks. I mentioned Pedro and Jalicia. They're former exchange student, we call them Rotex. And then here's part of my ask. To expand our committee, we'd really like to have someone partner with Pedro and Jalicia on the inbound and outbound and help with some of the administrative pieces of it. They're great at working with the students, but they're young professionals and their time's probably certainly more limited than even mine. I'm still working, but their time is much more limited than even mine because they're young professionals, and Jalicia is pregnant with their third child also. So yeah, she's due in November. But so we need somebody to partner with them. We're also looking for somebody that could be our treasurer and to be an activities coordinator and a training coordinator. I'll talk a little bit more about training. So when you are involved with youth, there's both Rotary training and Department of State training that you have to do. And you have to do that at both the volunteers, whether you're a Rotary volunteer, a non-Rotarian volunteer, or a host family. So there's a lot of training that goes on to make sure that everybody knows what their role is and knows how they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do. So we do a lot of training. I tell folks this is a youth exchange is literally a year-round job because we have been recruiting outbound students now for next year to leave August of 24. We've been recruiting them for several months. We have 3 applications already. We'll complete the application process in October, have interviews, and then we will start them on their orientation, which is a 6-step process before they leave in August. Well, while we're doing all that, we've got our outbounds that we're staying in touch with that are coming back in May. And we also have our inbounds here that we're working with, and they arrive in August and May. And then for short terms, they usually leave in June and come back in July or August. So it's a year-round effort for youth exchange. And we just need more people on our committee, to be quite honest. All right. So how do you get involved in youth exchange? You can host a student for an activity, a club meeting, or a project. If you've got a project coming up, we've got 2 young ladies that are going to be here in Charlotte. The last one just arrived yesterday from Brazil. She got here about 1 o'clock. We have a Brazilian and a young lady from India that is in Charlotte. There's 2 in Shelby, Italy, and Germany. But if you've got even something that you don't think is exciting, it could be very interesting to them because it's different than what they have been exposed to. I was talking to someone earlier about we take them to the Gardner-Webb University homecoming football game because they're not used to American football and the pageantry that goes along with homecoming. So we take them to the homecoming game. It's always amazing to see their reaction when you're standing on the side of the road and the homecoming parade comes by. It's something that's just very foreign to them. So you could chaperone exchange student on orientations or tours. We have orientation next weekend at Black Mountain. If you'd like to come, just let me know and I can work that out. Serve on your club committee, serve on the district committee, I've already asked for that. And then promote the program in your local schools. If you know a guidance counselor at a local school, then you can talk to them about youth programs, talk to them about youth exchanges, talk to them about the Seminar for Tomorrow's Leaders. We have a lot of youth programs that are, I'm not saying we are keeping them a secret, but we don't promote it well enough. So talk to them about that.
The young lady from India is actually being hosted by the Charlotte Club. They had a nice write-up in their newsletter this past week.
Mm-hmm.
Who is hosting the young lady from Brazil?
Understood.
Huntersville. Cool.
Yeah. But the big thing is, if you can promote it, promote our programs, and not just youth exchange, all of our youth programs. Recruit an outbound, host an inbound, join the district committee, okay? I mentioned the things that help we need on district committee. One thing I didn't mention was really looking for like a compliance officer. So we have a database that we use for all of Ohio Erie, and several other multi-districts use it too, that tracks everybody's training, everybody's background checks, everybody's references. And when those items need renewal, it starts showing up in yellow. And then when they're past due, it shows up in red. And as with most things, red's bad. And I'd love to have somebody that just, I think of it as this. Get up in the morning, you get your cup of coffee, you're doing the newspaper, and then you spend 2 or 3 minutes looking at our database to see what's yellow. And clicking the buttons to send out a reminder to somebody to do something. And it's literally, that's literally what it is. But it has to be something that you do pretty often, once a week, every day, that type of thing. So think about joining our committee, especially if you're a compliance officer type person. We really could use that help. Also, put Rotary Youth Exchange in your club budget. I don't know what your budget is. In 7710, I had clubs that would put us in the budget for $50, and I had clubs that put us in the budget for $1,000. To help, primarily what it does is it gives us funds to help students that don't have the financial means to do this. And that's kind of what my Rotary Youth Exchange Angel is. In 7710, I knew 10 folks. I've been in that district for 20 years. So I knew about 10 folks that if I had a student that was deserving and would be a good exchange student, but their family couldn't afford it, I could call 4 or 5 people and they would say, yeah, let's make sure that happens. And we have a young lady right now that she's not going to be able to go unless we find some funds. Now, we're still doing our due diligence on her. We have not decided if she's the right fit for our program. We're doing that due diligence, but we do know that financially she's just not going to be able to pull it off. Either way. And then, the one we talked about earlier, be a stranded student club for me. Charlotte has a lot of international flights. I've only had 3 stranded students, 2 of them this year. The other one was probably 7 or 8 years ago. But be a great service project for you if you were a stranded student club. And what does that mean? That means that you need a couple of people that were vetted as host families, and you stay vetted year-round. And hopefully you never get a call because we don't have any stranded students. But if we do have somebody stranded, I'd like to be able to call you and say, hey, I got kids at the airport and they're going to be stranded for a day or 2. Can you take care of them? So I'm looking for a stranded student club that would be able to do something like that. So, and I think that's it. This is just links to some things. A lot of good information on the Rotary website about youth exchange. A lot of good information on there. Any questions?
The youth exchange stops at Rising Senior, right?
There are That's a good question, Harold. Thank you for that question. I should have thought of that. So there are very, very, very few countries that will take a student that has graduated or that's looking for a gap year. We'll hear a lot about gap years. Very, very few countries that will take them. There are some, but you have a much larger selection of opportunities if you haven't graduated. And the graduation piece is even more important than the age piece. Sometimes we work around the age piece a little bit. It's very difficult to work around the graduation piece.
Yeah, so, Scott, when Jenny and I were back in, our old district, 6310, we were in the Midland Club. One of the things that we did we had a really big youth exchange program in Midland. Well, one of the things that we did was for families that didn't have the economic means to necessarily support that, was we had a golf tournament that enabled us to provide a pot of money to kids who were in need. And it was distributed every year to those most in need. Is there any thought being given in to having something that would be more sustainable in terms of supporting kids who have the economic need?
Yeah, I would say that us on the committee haven't gone down that path, and primarily because it was kind of like when you were talking about your upcoming anniversary. You have to have somebody to drive to do it, and we haven't had anybody that has talked about driving or doing it. Yeah. But that's a great idea. I like that.
It was really helpful. I mean, we were able to do it. And I'll tell you, the youth exchange is something, Jenny and I have hosted three students over the years. It's something that changes your life. We are still friends with all of those all of the parents of the kids who stayed with us, and
And we still stay in contact with a lot of the other ones that we didn't host.
Yeah. We had one young lady from France, her name was Carol Genovese. Carol wrote a letter, she wrote a 4-page letter when she left, and she talked about the impact of youth exchange on her life. And it was one of the most moving letters I've ever seen. We actually published a redacted portion of it in our newsletter because she was so thankful for having the opportunity to be in this country during that time and to learn so much. It changes the kids' worlds. We've got another one who stayed with us, went back home. Now she's back up here. She's nannied 2 or 3 times, and she just wants to get back to the States on a full-time basis.
She has a boyfriend.
That's a boyfriend, yeah.
You're married to here, so.
Like you, we've hosted
She
youth
didn't have
exchange
any.
students. We've hosted more Peace Fellows.
Yes.
And I tell folks, there's not many places in the world I can go and not be within a couple 100 miles of a Peace Fellow or a youth exchange student that I know. And that I know well enough to show up unannounced, knock on the door and walk right in. It's a great program. Peace Fellow's a great program. Yeah.
And I'll sign up for the Stranded Family. We'll sign up for the Stranded Family.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And let us know about the money too. We might be able to-
I'll say, I have never had a youth exchange student that we sent and they had no financial responsibility. What we've done is we tell them, okay, you need to go and raise or get a job and that type of thing. And we had a young man that, he went out and got a job. He saved $2,000 in 12 months. Wow. And we helped him, and he had a great opportunity. Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard Matt McConaughey's story about his youth exchange?
I have.
Okay.
He is a great ambassador of
I'm
Rotary.
sorry, that's the audible that came up.
Matthew McConaughey is a great ambassador of Rotary and even a bigger ambassador of the youth exchange program. Yeah, it really is.
Got it.
Yeah, so you know his name?
Trying to get on the speaker.
Chase it down.
Any other questions that you might have? Thank y'all very much for having me.
Scott, thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So, before we end it off, are we doing the
Yeah.
raffle? Not the raffle, but the gift.
Oh, yeah.
You have any?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what Kevin's going.
Ran out of time, ran out of time. Remember where it was?
I have to remember where it was. Scott, this actually is a new van. It doesn't look like it. It really is new. Supporting the environment, and that's, thank you so much.
How about picking the route?
I will.
Dave's back, you won.
Oh, yeah.
Last four digits are 5598.
5598.
5598.
Last one,
Something about the environment, because I just don't feel right when.
Question.